Greetings, class 702. This is the second lecture of our video series. Today we're going to be talking about Adlerian therapy. This is a reaction to psychoanalysis. Last week we talked about the brilliance of Freud and what he brought to the field in terms of his psychoanalytic theories. But for every action there's a reaction. And one of the key people that had some issues with what Freud had to say was Alfred Adler. Coincidentally, Alfred Adler was one of Freud's biggest allies when things began back in Vienna around the turn of the century, around 1900. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about Alfred Adler's life, just to give you a little context about what may come to be later on. You can see where he gets some of his theories from. He did not have a happy childhood. He was oftentimes sick. He was from a big family. They had 6 boys and 2 girls. And at age 4, he had pneumonia. At one point, he remembers recalling the doctor's words, "Alfred is lost," some sort of reference to him maybe not making it. But yes, of course, he did make it. He remembers being pampered by his mother until he was dethroned by his younger brother. He overcame illness, obviously, throughout his life, and a feeling of inferiority. And oftentimes he kind of compensated for some of the issues that he had earlier in childhood. We're going to come into why this is important later on. This is an example of a gentleman who shaped his own fate versus someone who just kind of took what life granted them. During his career, he came up with a lot of different theories, a lot of texts, a lot of books, but most importantly, he kind of started the whole clinic approach. He's kind of the godfather of school counseling. He created 32 separate clinics in Vienna to help assist individuals who were suffering with any sort of psychological or mental issues. So once again, he was referenced as the first school counselor because of the number of clinics that he opened, particularly related to young people. He was a major contributor to the psychodynamic theory. He worked with Freud for those 8 years before Freud kind of threw him off as a heretic. At one point, Freud actually tried to get the whole movement, the School of Vienna, to oust Alfred Adler for kind of speaking up against him. And he was successful in doing so, but in turn, Alfred became his own entity and had his own theories come to light. Alfred Adler stressed the importance of the unity of the personality. He said that in order to understand an individual, you need to understand them as a whole, not just small aspects of their personality, but to get a big picture of who they were. He was also known to kind of say, where we strive to go is more important than where we have come from. If you think about it, this is kind of a direct contradiction with Freud. Where we strive to go is more important than where we come from. Freud was all about the past and how much the past is influencing us today, and very rarely talked about the future and our goals and the things that we want for our lives. This is where Alfred kind of splintered. He was really the first individual to start talking about goals and how that could influence our personality. He said that humans are the creators and the creations of their lives, kind of giving a little bit of control to the human, what we want to do with our life. Unlike Freud, who was very deterministic. You know, this is what's going to happen. You are under the control of unconscious forces. Alfred Adler would say, we are in control, we have something to say about it and something to do about it, and that is what's going to help direct our personality as well. And he said that people develop a unique style that is movement forward, again, kind of a forward thinking versus a retrospective thing. And we develop our personalities in order to express our goals. Oftentimes we are who we are because of who we want to be. Again, very different from Freud. Alfred Adler did agree that early childhood development played a major role, particularly the 6 first years of one's life. This is where we kind of develop a life approach and a lifestyle. He was more focused on social relations than the sexual relations. He had that issue with Freud there, as many theorists did at that time. So again, social relations had a lot to do with it, focusing on the environment perhaps a little bit more, leading off of Erikson. We talked a little bit about Erikson last week. He, again, he focused on our behavior as being purposeful and goal-oriented. We do what we do for a reason, and it oftentimes has to do with our future goals and the things that we want for our lives. We're not just reacting to these unconscious forces, to our id and our ego and superego. We are very much in control, he would say. We are more conscious than unconscious, not deterministic. Alfred Adler obviously would stress then choice and responsibility. If we are in control, then we must have a choice of what we want to do with our lives. And if we are going to choose, then we need to be responsible for our choice and say, yes, this was my decision, and I will take whatever good or negative comes from it. He was very much concerned in the meaning of life and kind of how one goes about it and how one is constantly doing things with their behavior in order to find meaning in their life. Playing off his own childhood, Alfred had an obsession or an interest in inferiority feelings, things that may be perceived as an inferiority complex. He said it was normal. He said it was a source of human striving. And interestingly enough, he said inferiority is what motivates us. We recognize our faults. We recognize that we are not at our best. And this inferior feeling says, hey, get off your ass and do something about it. You can be better. There's someone else out there that's better and doing it better than you. And let's go for it. This is a motivational factor. This is not something that's going to cripple us. This is something that's going to push us forward. He said that we're all driven to overcome our own inferiorities. And that's really coincides with what was popular in the day that Adler was going about this. Nietzsche's work, A Will to Power, was something of a fad. People were just beginning to realize that we were in control of our destiny, and that if we willed it so, it could happen. So it was kind of a way to take control of our lives kind of moment, and that we can take action and make change. Alfred Adler, again, with the importance of what goes on at a young age, said that around the age of 6, we begin to see ourselves. And we see ourselves as incomplete beings. And it is our mission from this point forward to complete ourselves, this whole concept. And we're going to come back to the whole concept later in the Gestalt therapy and a lot of other therapies as well. He said, we realize maybe by watching our mother or a father or cousin or television or whatever it might be, that there are people out there or people that we know that can do things better than we can. And we see ourselves as incomplete in that we are not perfect. We could always jump higher, run faster, spell better, whatever it is. We take cues from everybody else and we realize what our faults are. From that point forward, it is our life mission to complete ourselves, to get better at what we're inferior at. And hopefully, at that point, we'll have some sort of catharsis when we do get better, and then we will be a whole. Our what we originally imagined our whole to be, eventually we will become that. He was quoted as saying, biology is not as important as what we do with our lives. That how we are born is not as important as what we do. And when we think about some examples of that, who might come to mind is maybe Helen Keller or Governor Patterson, or I have down here Stephen Hawkins. Okay, these are people that were obviously born with disabilities, but have made so much of their lives due to what they wanted to be and who they wanted to be, and trying to be more than just how they were born. So he's very much interested in that. concept of motivating us as individuals. Again, this is a reaction to Freud, who said everything was deterministic and that things happen to us.